Hey, this is Rick with Tipping Goat, here to show you Super Slam Dunk Touchdown, a little bit of what I've been working on with the controllers. So hopping over to controller configuration, oh my goodness, this looks a little different. So we are actually able to get the button glyph, I guess it's called, image for the different icons on the controller. So here was an Xbox One controller. We can see that there's no start button. It has that weird triple line thing called, I think, menu, and that's view. So because we're looking to port on Xbox One, we're going to support the Xbox One buttons and show the right image for those buttons. So here's a Sony DualShock. So this is pulling the images based on Sony DualShock. So we have X, O, R1. That's the best triangle I could manage given the number of pixels. And start and back. So this back button. Now we don't have all the buttons, so I'm not actually sure if that's the touchpad. Okay. And I think if I hit options, I don't have an options button, so it just defaults to start. And share is, I guess that's the select button. Select button needs a little bit of work. But the idea is for each of these different types of controllers, we have different glyphs. Now here's a flight stick. This one I've intentionally not created any profile for, even though I could make these like C or B buttons. Just because it has a lot of weird buttons like triggers and stuff like that. And if you're playing with a flight stick, you're probably not having the best time anyway. But this is a good test to show that when we don't get the correct button back, it defaults to the text I get. Now I'm getting this from Rewired is the library I'm using. I highly recommend that if you're using Unity. You're not going to do better than Rewired. And here is the Xbox 360 controller. So every controller, even though this is Xbox, this has the correct start and back buttons versus the Xbox One having these buttons. So every single controller that I've created a definition for has its own assignments of what these buttons look like. And again, if you get a button that, or a controller that doesn't exist, it'll spell it out. So here's GameCube. We've got even the Z button on there. Nyko Airflow is a old controller I have that has numbers for the buttons, so we're able to pull those as well. And that I think is about it. And the Logitech. So these are all the different controllers we've got. Now this is a lot of work to make the controller configuration screen look a little fugly. I think maybe we need some more love on these buttons, but it's functional for now. The important thing though is that we can hop over here into quick match, and depending on which controller I use, here is the Xbox One controller. It says press A because we're ready to begin. But wait, another player wants to join in. He's picked up his PS4 controller. Well, now it says press X. It's basically the last controller that got added will take over that. So it's less confusing if you use all the same controllers, but if you mix and match, it does work. And just to keep going, here's the Logitech. So there's button 1. Here's the flight stick. So it's going to say something crazy. Yeah, pinky trigger or whatever too. And then we've also got Xbox 360, and we've got GameCube, which is going to say press A, which is the big green button. Anyway, controllers, very complicated, very confusing, and a lot of stuff to worry about just to make it flash press A on the screen, but I really wanted to show this off, and I think to do that I had to kind of show like why this is so complicated. So let's look at the code here. So what we're doing here is we've got this button glyph lookup. So here, for instance, is the Amazon Fire controller. And if we find that over here, Amazon Fire Game Controller, you can see every one of these controllers has a GUID, and I use that GUID to pair it with the button number, and we can look up the button numbers here too. So for instance, the A button is ID number 6. So you see I add the GUID and ID 6 to get the key that I use to look up in the dictionary what the character is for that button, and that button character is going to be A, because the Amazon Fire controller has the ABXY. And you can see from these different definitions, some of them like have ABXY, some of them like are Nintendo style or like BAYX. So a little bit of complicated stuff there. It gets more complicated because this is all done in a sprite font. So if we hop over to Unity and I hit pause here, we can jump over to my resources UI folder where I'm keeping my font. And this is the sprite font we're using right now. And so here you can see all the different buttons. In fact, I ran out of room and I had to add a few more buttons for L1 and R1 and L2 that I'm using for all these sticks. So that's what that map is doing, is it's mapping a controller GUID and button number to some position here in this sprite font. I know. So here, for instance, the Xbox One controller, just to be silly, let's put that over on the X button. So shoot will now be X, and when I jump in here to quick match and start it up, it says press X instead of press A. So anyway, it works. It will make the game a lot easier, especially when we get some text in the game, hopefully for season mode, to show you like how to shoot and pass and have a little bit of tutorial stuff, which is kind of absent at the moment, but hopefully we'll get some stuff in there, and it'll tell you which button to hit, and that'll make a lot more sense. So thanks for watching. Stay tuned for season mode coming later this year. This is going to be a free update for everybody who bought the game. If you bought the game on Steam or Humble or on NVIDIA Shield, there will be season mode updates going out for all those platforms. And hopefully somewhere along the same time frame we'll be getting an Xbox One release as well.